through some of that detail with the members in a moment. Again, because of the complexity of this issue, we did actually offer to members last week the opportunity to attend an informal briefing in preparation for this report coming this evening to full council next week, which obviously I'm aware that some members present took the opportunity of. So, before I actually get into the meat of the report in relation to contract end and the work we need to do, I'll just give a very quick recap for members in relation to the South West 1 contract. Apologies obviously to those of you that obviously heard this last week. The South West 1 contract that we have is actually a 10-year contract that was signed originally in 2007. Specifically, South West 1 is a public-private joint venture company, but it is, in legal terms, it is a separate legal entity and a limited company. The public partners to the partnership are obviously ourselves, Somerset County Council and the Avon and Somerset Police, with IBM being the private sector partner. The contract was largely set up to deliver a range of back-office services to all of the organisations, and it's pretty much the same services that it was delivering to the various organisations. And I provided Appendix A to the report, a list of the taunton and deane services that we originally put in scope. Appendix A also provides details of the services that we have already to date taken back in-house since the beginning of the contract, and very roughly we have brought back in-house something approaching 2/3 of the original contract. In addition to delivering those day-to-day services, the South West 1 contract also delivered a number of key transformation projects back in 2007, which were funded, or are being funded, through procurement savings that the council and the other partners are making. Two of those key projects were in relation to the implementation of the SAP back office system and the SAP CRM, or Customer Relationship Management System. Now, having that common computer platform for the partnership was absolutely crucial to South West 1's ability to deliver savings across the partnership, because simply they're working on the same basic ICT platforms for all three partners. In terms of the staffing arrangements, in 2007, all of the public partners seconded a number of staff to the partnership. Now, they seconded rather than transferred under the normal treaty arrangements. Now, the secondment arrangement effectively lasts for the 10 years of the contract, and in addition provides an assured employment guarantee for the staff who seconded. And that was something that IBM actually offered to all the authorities through the bidding processes as one of the members of the contract. So that's hopefully some useful background in terms of what South West 1 is. In terms of contract end specifically, the contract is actually due to come to an end in November 2017. Now, obviously, I appreciate that is still some 2.5 years off, but actually, in view of the size and scale of the contract, we judge that we need to start doing detailed work now in preparation for that contract end, leading up or to enable us to make recommendations to members later this year, so that you can start to make decisions in good time to enable us to implement that in preparation for contract end. In addition, this is a partnership, so decisions that we make locally potentially impact on the other partners to this as well. So we're conscious that we need to be working, and as far as it's possible to do, with the other partners in actually implementing whatever our decision is in relation to contract end. Specifically, I think we need to do a number of things in relation to preparing for this, which the report outlines. Firstly, and most importantly, I think we need to consider a couple of recommendations as to the most appropriate future service delivery option or options for the services that we still have within South West One. As part of that, we also need to consider the impact on the remaining seconded staff that we have within South West One. We still have somewhere just short of 50 staff actually seconded to the South West One partnership. I obviously mentioned the implementation of the SAP computer system, which was the necessary computer system for the partnership. But we also need to give consideration as to actually whether going forwards that is going to be the right IT platform for the council in the future, which could depend heavily upon we need to factor in the service delivery model that we choose going forwards. So we need to review that in some detail. Obviously, crucially as well, through this period of transition at the end of the project partnership, we have to ensure that we maintain service delivery. Because obviously South West One is there and those services are there to actually support the council and in some cases, in the case of customer services, directly deliver services to customers. You will want to be clear on, we will need to be clear on the costs of the various options that we're potentially going to consider moving to the future. We also need to ensure that the future service delivery option that we recommend, that is chosen, enables the council to deliver its corporate objectives and priorities going forward and actually fits with our new and changed corporate priorities and objectives. I'm obviously conscious that the world of 2015 is a very different place. So the financial climate is very different from the time when we actually entered into this the contract with South West One. So that's some of the issues that we've got to consider through the contract end process. I think hopefully you'll see from that actually there are actually a lot of issues in there, and it's a multifaceted piece of work. So it is actually quite a complex and detailed project that we have to actually undertake to come up with recommendations. In terms of the approach that we would suggest taking to contract end planning, broadly speaking, it's a three-phased approach. The first phase, which I'm talking to you in detail about tonight, is very much actually around a detailed options appraisal, which would lead up to us being able to put detailed costed options in front of you to enable you to make decisions later in the year. The second phase then is, having made decisions in terms of the future of the contract, is then very much about us actually implementing those decisions, the chosen options, in the lead up to the contract end. The third phase of this then just recognises that following the end of the contract, because we are very likely to be moving services to a new operating model, new way of working, that we will need a period of stabilisation to make sure that those services bed in properly in whatever new way of working we're in at that stage. But as stressed, the current focus is very much on the first phase, that three-phase approach. In terms of what we need to cover in that first phase, as I've said, the end product is a detailed and costed options appraisal and recommendations. But that also needs to cover in some detail, and this is an area we will very much have to work with the other parties on. The approach to potentially bringing staff back in-house, and in some instances transferring them to cheaply, potentially staff from either direct hire staff of South West One or staff from the other partners who would come to us. In addition, there is a separate piece of work we need to do in relation to the SAP system that I've mentioned, and we need to undertake a detailed review to establish actually what potential suitable alternative systems would be, depending on what operating model we want to move to. There are two broad elements to that, because there is what's known as the SAP back office system, which is broadly the finance systems and the HR systems, and also an element of the procurement system as well. But also separately, there is the customer relationship management system, which underpins the ability of customer services to actually deliver their services to the public. And I think we probably need to look at those two elements separately, and it may be that even with back office systems that we need to look at separate options for each. But again, it's a detailed piece of work to actually understand what alternatives are out there, how much they would cost, how quickly we can implement them. I think it's highly likely as well that during this phase we will need to potentially commence negotiations with South West One, or at the very least discussions to actually understand how we can make this happen. And obviously we need to talk to the other partners about firstly what they're doing, but obviously to discuss and hopefully make sure that what we're doing is consistent and doesn't cause them significant problems. And then obviously the key element of this is that we will be coming forward to you with recommendations. As I mentioned, this is a chunky piece of work, so yeah, as the report details, we believe we need to resource this appropriately to make sure that A, we can hit the timetable that we're looking at, and B, we can come forward with sufficient detail. So specifically, I'm looking to resource this. There's a key piece here around project management. To an extent, we may need some specialist commercial skills if we actually get into negotiations during this phase. The HR piece is the employment law piece is quite key, so we need to make sure that we've got an appropriate level of resource on that. We will need an element of specialist legal advice on this, which we will need to buy in externally. We will need finance support. There is going to be a large amount of number crunching with this to try and establish the costs of running services going forward. And finally, there's that entire piece I mentioned around actually looking at alternative computer system options to replace the SAP system. So, you know, that's a very quick overview of what the report is attempting to explain. In terms of the recommendations tonight, as I mentioned, this report will go on to the full council next week. Members are being asked this evening to note the work that we need to undertake in relation to succession planning and support an approval or request for an additional £47,000 in funding to help fund that first phase of the project. So that's probably all I wanted to say by way of introduction, and obviously happy to take questions.
Thank you, Richard, for introducing that and what your recommendations are. Now, I have two members of the public. Thank you for giving us notice that you were going to attend. I'm going to ask three of you, Nigel Bean, David Orr and Roger Conway. I think that's the order you wish to. Can I draw your attention? You've got 3 minutes to, in fact, put your comments to it, and I'm calling on Nigel Bean to start the things, if I may. So, nothing. Yes. Nigel, but you're off. Yes, okay.
Thank you, Chair. I have submitted these in writing. Okay, question 1, and it'd be helpful if these were circulated to the committee as well, perhaps. Anyway, question 1 is about paragraph 3.8. I won't repeat the paragraph, but I'll complete the final sentence where it says the original target procurement savings was £10 million, but South West One have revised this to circa £5 million. In practice, only circa £3 million savings have been identified. So question 1A is, what is the level of cash flow savings at the end of March 2015? And question 1B, what is the forecast cash flow savings by the end of the contract, which is 2017? Question 2, will there be joint working with Somerset County Council and West Somerset Council for the South West 1 exit strategy? Question 3, will there be joint ICT with Somerset County Council in County Hall when Taunton Deane Borough Council relocate? Question 4A, will the review take account of the recently reported discussions about joint working between Avon and Somerset Police and Wiltshire Police? Question 4B, what was the outcome of the partners' conference call about which was about the police discussions in January 2015? Question 5, will the Taunton Deane Borough Council review also include considering creating jobs in the local economy? Question 6A, can the review options also include more public shared services with neighbouring local authorities? Question 6B, will the project conduct an impact assessment should a unitary council reorganisation take place after the elections? Question 7, will best practice be followed where a full business case is developed ahead of a preferred option being chosen? And we're a bit concerned that phase 1 is options appraisals rather than building up the full business case. And just to note that Project ISIS, which led to South West 1, chose the preferred option before a full business case was developed. Question 8, will the South West 1 exit project be regularly reported to this committee? Question 9, how much have you, Council, budgeted for the South West 1 exit strategy? And additionally, there were research reports done by Professor Dexter Whitfield, which are well worth revisiting during this phase, if only for helping, for looking at lessons learned and planning for the future. Thank you, Chair.
Richard.
Chair, I did receive the questions earlier today. I haven't, to be honest with you, had a chance to have a look at these in detail. There are quite a number of questions here. So what I would propose to do is let me take those away and we can respond in writing to those.
Yes, can you give any hint on any of them there which you think are of interest to us in light of the proposals that we've got to consider in your report?
Certainly, Chairman. I think that there are clearly some very valid points here in terms of things that we need to consider when we're actually progressing the review. There are quite a few areas in here which we've identified we obviously need to look at. We do need to, and we're very conscious of the fact that we need to consider how the Council intends to work in the future and looking at things such as partnership working. Obviously the purpose of tonight though is very much around actually kicking off this review. Until we've actually undertaken the review, and then the short answer to all of these is actually, yes, we never consider it, but I don't actually know what the answer is at this moment in time. But the intention is that when we come back to you later in the year with recommendations that this is the sort of areas that we will have addressed, and we'll be coming to you with detail.
I appreciate that, but I mean, if I look, let's just take question 2. Isn't it a yes or no situation? Will there be joint working with the Somerset County Council and West Somerset Council for the South West 1 exit strategy?
Well, I don't think it necessarily is a straight yes or no question. As I've said, we certainly recognise that we need to engage with Somerset County Council as a partner in South West 1. Obviously I can't answer at this stage exactly to what extent the County Council will wish to engage with us on it. In terms of our engaging with West Somerset Council directly in relation to the South West 1 exit strategy, West Somerset are obviously not a partner to South West 1. But I am very conscious, obviously, that in terms of a future service delivery model, this authority is in partnership with West Somerset. So obviously, quite logically going forwards, we need to look to actually make sure that for the services that are coming back, that we are in a position to run them in partnership with West Somerset Council.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm giving you a bit of a prompt here because I think that these members of the public have to take time to come here, and we know we will as members, we will ensure that they get the response from you to these. But at the same time, I think it's just here that we see, for example, by the question 4A, again, to say, I'm sure the answer will simply be yes. Will the review take account of the recently reported discussions about joint working between Avon, Somerset Police and Wiltshire Police? I'm not sure why we can't sort of give a gentle hint that is likely to be your response.
Well, yeah, certainly in relation to that one, yes it will, because as I said, we will be talking to the police about our intentions as well.
And I can see, I mean, there are a lot of speculative questions here about hypothetical ones, which really you're not going to be able to give an answer to. I mean, the specific ones are obviously in question 1, which are, you know, a scrutiny and monitoring one, which we're very concerned of as members of this committee. But anyway, listen, can we move on to the second question, which is going to be put by, sorry, I can't remember which one it is. Is it David? It's David Orr, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a statement here I may diverge a little. I broadly welcome this report as it's frank and realistic, both about the shortcomings of this controversial joint venture with IBM and also the scale of the issues faced in a contract exit strategy. And I think it's clear if we take all the costs into account that I very much doubt that Taunton Deane taxpayers have seen a real saving. I am quite concerned that you're doing an options appraisal before you've decided what your new operating model is. And that to me, and I'm formally qualified in this, seems wrong way round. It's what you did in 2007. You need to determine your new operating model. When you've determined that, then you look at the options and see how they fitted. So I'm sorry, Chairman, I find the phasing of the project doesn't have my confidence. The other thing is, it's a good job you are starting now, because it took you 2 years to get into it last time. I think the council spent about 4 million, and with the county council, I think you spent about £500,000. So quite how far 47k will go, I don't know. It's also worth saying that the report says that less partners envisaged joined. Actually, there were over 30 people who signed the framework agreement, not one of them joined. I've got 30 years IT experience, and in 2007 I was the IT strategy analyst for Somerset County Council. And the assertions in this paper that in 2007 you couldn't foresee greater electronic transactions and mobile technologies are simply wrong, I'm afraid, Chair. And the comments about clouds replacing data centres are simply uninformed. Behind every cloud service there are one or more physical data centres. I do agree with this paper stating that best practice is to move away from a big bang, large joint venture and to adopt multi-sourcing IT strategies with shorter term and more manageable contracts. Ironically, that was the policy followed by the IT services in both councils prior to South West 1. The key thing here is, who can predict what will happen over 10 years? In order to follow a multi-sourcing IT strategy, it will be necessary to rebuild the in-house IT services to a viable level. And I would suggest that it will only be viable if Taunton Deane and West Somerset share an IT service with Somerset County Council. You've decided to co-locate premises with the County Council, then the logic of a shared IT service with the County Council is compelling. The paper is very critical of SAP, but I have to say, SAP does actually work reasonably well in Hampshire, Dorset and Wiltshire councils. And why is that? These councils have functioning IT services who in-sourced expertise and configured SAP to local authority requirements. Regrettably, despite being paid top dollar, IBM offshored SAP configuration to their division in India, and that has resulted in what auditors Grant Thornton formally described as a poorly configured version of SAP, so your report concurs with that. I would expect this poorly configured version of SAP will have no residual value and the Council is right to expect a full replacement cost to be incurred. IT should never be blanket described or considered as so-called back office. Good IT that is aligned with corporate plans helps to drive organisations forward. Successful companies keep control of key IT functions, especially the ability to redesign customer-facing and frontline processes where the real service benefits and savings lie. And I've said already that I think the budget request in this paper is inadequate, and I think it makes no sense for this council and the county council to replicate common contract exit work. Having set aside parochial concerns to co-locate premises for this council with the county council, I urge you to take the same approach by also sharing IT with the county council. Successful organisations know that joining people, property and IT together is key to agility, efficiency and customer satisfaction. Thank you.
That's a statement I don't think we need to at this stage. The interesting thing is, to members of the public, and I'll get corrected if I'm wrong, but members of the council have had very considerable briefing from Richard Seeley and Adrian Glasson-Smith on the whole question of of the ending of the contract with South Stretch, or the end of the 10 years, the expiry of the 10-year agreement. Both the executive and the shadow executive had briefings from Richard Seeley, and then I think they had, I'm not sure, 2 members information meetings for general members on this one. So we are quite au fait with this. And I have to say, I did take up quite an important point that David Orr has made, was that actually our number one priority was to identify what we need and what services we want, rather than, I made that point, and I'm sure Richard Seeley would back me up, I was actually asking for that, rather than looking totally at the disentanglement and the unpicking of this. But really, our first priority, and as a member who tend to sit on the sidelines on this one, is the very difficulty that really we should be single-minded, focused on what is in the best interest of giving all our customers, all our 120,000 residents, what we can do, and we should take the client interest first and foremost and develop that, rather than getting into that. That was my approach and has been it all along and consistent. Now, I don't know, I'm no technical man, you have a lot more experience of this than me as a member of the public, but I have felt that is absolutely paramount. What your statement appears to me to be doing is actually rather trying to assume the role of both client, technician and everything, and it's relatively easy to be wise after the event in a sense, actually. And you, on this one, David, I think that's my own personal view on this one, but I think you're absolutely right. We in Taunton Deane, as a member, my priority is to make sure that our systems are accessible, our offices are easily available, that they are accountable to us, to make sure that we deliver the best possible services across the public sector for us. And I have never actually deviated from that approach. What happens is, you have made comments in the press about us getting a love-in with the officers and etc. back in the signing of the contract in 2007. I might say there are 2 or 3 members in this, actually on this committee today, who did not actually agree to this. I wasn't brave enough to vote against it. I actually abstained on the day, but I know there are 2 members who did. But our job now is actually to make the best of a very difficult set of circumstances to take us forward with so many unknowns. Relocation, and never mind the election in 7 weeks' time, relocation, possibility of relocation, the possibility of unitary status and all those kind of things. So I have sympathies with the officers a bit in that respect. It's not an easy task, but I will always champion making sure that the client aspect is the most important. The other thing I did, I'm sorry I'm using this as an opportunity, because as chairman, to state my point of view, then all of you are going to come in a minute, but that is where I come in on this, and that's what I shall actually continue to do. So I'm making my statement now. So the third question comes from Roger. Sorry, it'll be Roger Conway, my apologies. Mr. Conway.
Thank you, Chair. I'm actually quite encouraged by your statement in response to David Orr's message to you. I'm also rather keen on looking back. It's very nice to move forward from where we are, but you have to see where you've come from. For the members' benefit, I'm Roger Conway. I am not a member of any political party, nor am I a member of a trades union, and I do not have any political ambitions whatsoever. Just to make one clear. I'm a council taxpayer in Taunton Deane, and I'm interested in getting the best deal for the council taxpayers. You probably won't like my statement, but here it is. Members, you have before you a most damning report and summary of what at best can be described as an extraordinary naive behaviour, judgments and decision-making. At the time when the South West 1 proposal was mooted, there were those both inside and outside the political process who could see the risks and challenges of getting into bed with a slick American multinational company without ensuring there were sufficient resources to manage and control the contract. And they told you so. And I'm rather honoured to be counted amongst those people. Were the warnings heeded? Did we get any thanks for our experience? And David's example of, he's more experienced than anybody sitting in this room tonight about this particular process. Our experienced professional analysis and the articulation of where the risks lay. No, of course we weren't. Because your party political agendas were perceived to be far more important to you than the best interests of the taxpayers of Taunton Deane. It's time to show some courage and admit your mistakes. The members and senior officers responsible should now apologise to those whom you tried to belittle and obstruct. And more importantly, you need to guarantee to the taxpayers of Taunton Deane that you will never again embark on such a catastrophic course of action. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you, Roger Conway. Noted at this stage. I'm going to ask, you've heard those two statements. Richard, would you care to come back at this stage or not?
There's no particular comments, Chair, that I was going to tend to make in response to this. Obviously, the first statement by Mr. Alder, there is quite a lot in there, isn't there? If you deem that it requires a response, then it's something I'd like to take away and actually respond to in length.
That's fine, thank you. I thought you should come back at this stage.
Chair, will we get copies of the responses?
I'm told they've been circulated to
The responses, Chair.
the responses. Yes, can I make sure that the response to Nigel Beirn's one is, I'm not sure if there's going to be a response to the statements made by David or Roger Conway.
I find the response to Mr. Law to be useful. Some good points there. I think it would help us all if we saw the responses that were given. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm very grateful to David Orr and Nigel Beirn for putting them in writing. So to that extent, Richard, could I ask you if you would care at some point to distribute to members of the committee the response?
Certainly, Chair.
Is that okay?
Would that be to all members, Chair?
Yeah, that's to all members, all 55, are you talking about?
It's only another button on a computer.
Okay, right, fine, okay. So, I'm opening this to members of the public. You've already heard my views. I've made my statement on this one. Councillor Bill Wren is the first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Right, we've got quite a lot here. I have to say, I wasn't on the council back in 2007. When I heard the announcement of Points West and South West 1, I thought the whole idea was barking, but there we go.
You weren't on the committee that
Thank you.
No.
That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, clearly getting into South West 1 was an extremely complicated and complex manoeuvre. Deciding on the next stage when the contract runs out is going to be equally complicated, and I suspect on the basis of a lot more complicated than that. So I do welcome the steps that are set out here. I agree with the Chairman and Mr. Orr that actually the first question to ask is what exactly is it we're trying to do here? And we need to settle that down quickly and then move into options. Now, the thing that slightly bothers me is that as this process and this project moves forward, because I'm a bit of a control freak, would like to keep a fairly close eye on it. We've got 30 months to do this, we've got 30 months to get it right, and therefore I'm going to ask Mr. Seeley how big his team is going to be to do this. Has he selected his team and sorted them out yet? has he got a particular timetable in mind to deliver the 3 phases? And more importantly, has he got any milestones attached to that timetable so that we know what should happen and when it should have happened? And I'd be also very interested to see, and possibly run past this committee, the detailed criteria that are going to be used to evaluate the various options. All too often this will come down to money. Now money isn't always the common denominator. You will have to look at service delivery and what we're, back to the original question, you have to have a clear line of sight right from the start. What it is we're trying to do, and the criteria need to fall into that category. And it's not simply money. So I think what I would like to suggest is that this scrutiny committee, in its next incarnation, works very closely or has a close working relationship with this project as it goes forward and has regular reports. And I'm sorry, Mr. Seeley, this is going to give you a lot of extra work, but I would like to be cited on this, assuming I'm re-elected and assuming I'm invited back on the committee. And the last point I wanted to make, I'm not sure I particularly want any specific responses, is are you at any point proposing to bring an independent third party into the heart of the process and to possibly validate your final findings? Because clearly, if you're dealing with it in-house, there is a risk that it won't be sufficiently objective, and I think we have to be assured that we are going to get this right.
Chair, just very quickly in response, I mean, yes, they're all very valid points, and the next key stage of this when we get into phase 1 is to very quickly actually get this up and running as a project. So we already recognise that there are things that we need to work through quite quickly in terms of governance. So for instance, if you have been involved in the original procurement of South West 1, actually we set up a specific members steering group to actually that we reported to on a very regular basis to oversee this. And I think because of the size and scale of this project, it's certainly worth considering doing something similar. The timetable, the timetable that we're working to in respect to phase 1 is in the autumn to actually come back with with the detailed recommendations. At that stage will then contain details of the timetable for delivering the next stage in terms of implementation. A lot more detail in terms of actually, depending on the option we go with, in terms of how we actually then need to deliver that and resource that. In terms of the team that we need to do this, yes, we're already starting to get thought down and quickly actually get a project team with the right level of skills in all of those areas I've mentioned in place and working on this. The criteria for the final decision, or the decision in the autumn with this, obviously that's something you as members have to have. It's crucial that you have an input into that, because obviously ultimately that's your decision ultimately, and you need to determine actually what we should give greater weighting to. Is it cost, or is it actually, I suspect more likely, a mixture of cost and quality of service? Quality of service, and obviously there will be other factors as well. In terms of actually third-party evaluation, yes, that is something we will give consideration to, because I'm conscious we don't necessarily have a monopoly on ideas with this, and actually I think you would find it beneficial, and we certainly would find it beneficial to actually bring in some external expertise to almost cast fresh but specialist eyes on this and say that yes, actually what we come up with is broadly sensible.
Mr. Chairman, can I just have one supplementary? Have you got an idea of the cost? I see you're asking for an extra 40,000. What's the total budget you're working with at the moment? Apologies for not having spotted it.
The total budget for the first phase is around about 100,000. But an element of that could actually be funded from an existing reserve. In terms of the budget actually for further phases, at this stage, I wouldn't like to hazard a guess as to what it would be, but I think as obviously you're already beginning to get a feel for this is a not insignificant project. So, a key element of that next stage
That's all staff costs.
Councillor Simon Coles.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points. Some of them have been touched on already. I'm concerned that we have an unknown amount of money. We've got 47,000 being requested now, which is roughly 50% of the first phase. The other 53,000 being found from somewhere else, a little pot somewhere else. I think it's really important that the councillors and the public know what sort of money we're spending, because at the moment we seem to be hiding it. I noted at 6.4 in the report, you mentioned some of the things about SAP, costly, complex, resource intensive and not responsive to TVC's requirements. Also, you said it's a barrier to sharing services with other district councils. My comment from my very, very limited knowledge of IT is that to be compatible, you don't have to have exactly the same kit. And I take the point that Mr. Orr made, that in other iterations, SAP tends to be reasonably efficient. So I'm a bit concerned that here, it doesn't seem to have worked, according to the report. I go back to this question of how much money you're going to need to get through the 3 phases, because we've only got 30 months left. It sounds like a long time, but it isn't really a long time. We're going to have to negotiate an exit with the major shareholder and 2 other shareholders, and we are the minnow in this. We have, I think it was 4% of the company. So we are very much the minnow in this. And I'm concerned that we will need to look to find the very, very best value for the residents and citizens of our district. Those are the questions. The other questions I had have already been asked. Thank you, Chair. Richard's really close to comment.
Secondly, in respect of the budget, the reserve is not hidden money as such. The reserve is an existing reserve which has been put in front of members before. However, if it would be of use in advance of full council, I can actually provide a more detailed breakdown of the costs of the first phase. I'm happy to do that. The future phases, I appreciate it would be lovely to sit here tonight and be able to say to you that phase 2 is going to cost this amount, phase 3 is going to cost this. Unfortunately, it's just, I will be pulling figures out of the air to a large extent, because we need to understand, take this detailed piece of work in phase 1 to actually understand what those costings are going to be. But, I very much understand that, we have to make sure that we can deliver this at best possible value for the public and council taxpayers. In terms of SAP, the comments in here are actually about the appropriateness of SAP for use in future at district council level. As I mentioned during the introduction, SAP was deemed as being necessary for an organisation the size of South West 1, which is obviously incorporating running services at county council level, which I think the majority of the councils that were referenced by Mr. Orr, I think it was, are actually county councils. And certainly it was also included the police. What we're looking for going forwards is that, and again, it depends on the option you choose to go with, but if what we're looking to do is partnership at more district level, then SAP may not be maybe too large a tool, frankly, and too costly a tool for use at that level. But again, we're not making decisions about that tonight. We've got to work through all of this in this first phase of the project and come forward to you with recommendations.
Chair, may I come back?
Very quickly.
Thank you. It's just really, I think we're doing this, potentially doing this the wrong way around. We need to decide what it is we want to do, and then find the best solution to enable us to do that.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Sorry if I'm not relating this properly, but so we're very conscious that we need to establish actually what is the best option, best delivery vehicle for our corporate objectives.
So I don't mean to disagree entirely, but what we need to decide is what it is we want to do. then we'll get to what is the best way to do it, and whether system A, B or C might be the right one for us to use. But unless we know what it is we want to achieve, we'll end up with a dog's breakfast.
Well, obviously, this next stage, we quickly need to work through how we're going to do this. So if we need to do more work on that with members, I'm certainly happy to do so.
Following that line of inquiry, which is where I came in, shouldn't we actually disentangle the exit strategy from South West 1 on the one hand, with identification of where we ought to be going as a council in our interest of delivering the services which are expected of us by the public, and which we are doing. And really, the danger of what we have in front of us tonight is surely the fact that the two are actually too intermingled and really rather too complex for simple minds, if I dare. I'm sorry, I'm pushing more into that category for us in that sense, and I am actually concerned. It may be a capacity problem too, which we find ourselves in that sense, but that is actually how I ideally would like us to be proceeding, in fact. But I don't know, sorry. So I'm just following on from Councillor Gould's question, actually, on this one. Can we do that? Could we disentangle our exit strategy from South West 1 on what we actually specifically require?
Surely.
Yes, surely now. I know, but I'm trying to give you your official status as the...
Oh, don't worry. I just wonder if I can help with this, because you're absolutely right. We as a council need to be much clearer and sharper about what it is we want to be in the future. The IT service delivery that then supports that, I think Mr. Orr referred to it as the operating model. You can call it lots of different things, but really being clear on what kind of organisation we want to be, what that therefore means in terms of what services we're going to deliver to our public and how we want to do that is crucial to nail before we really decide on what IT service we want and how that's going to be configured to support it. What's not clear from this paper, and I guess that's probably deliberately so, is the need for the council to drive forward that discussion. You as members know that over the last, is it 6 to 9 months now, through the project we've done with West Somerset, we've done the first bit of the business case. The second bit is looming, which is really where we need to be really clear on that transformation agenda. The first bit of that has been very, very clear about what kind of council you want to be. We've had several member briefings on that over recent months. The most recent one, I think, was to try and pull together some cohesive views on that to enable us to articulate that future operating model. We're not there yet. And clearly where we are, as you said, Councillor Horsley, 7 weeks before an election, that conversation needs to continue, doesn't it, over the summer months. But quite quickly into the new quadrennium, we need to be very, very clear on our destination. We know we've got huge financial challenges ahead. We know we can't carry on as we are. So what is it we want to do? And how can we therefore best support that through our support services? The work that Richard and his team are suggesting needs to start now is we can't wait until we've got the answer before we start that planning work. He's simply putting down a marker, really, that looking at different options for IT service delivery will run along on a similar time track to that bigger bit of work that you as councillors absolutely need to drive. You need to, it's a member-led organisation, you need to drive what the future vision is for this organisation, and that will come over the summer months. So I just wanted to give assurance that they're separate but they're connected. It has to be part of the programme of transformation.
Yeah,
Apologies if I made it worse.
I understand where you're coming from. I think my one element for further debate and discussion is what you mean by corporate objectives. I think we have a responsibility to the individual residents, and I think in a way one of the difficulties of looking at corporate objective, we will deal with social deprivation in Lingford doesn't actually take into account the individuals whom we service, and that is actually work that I think should be paramount when you think they have to pay their council tax individually, or 54,000 households, or whatever it is, etc. And I think there's a danger that the so-called corporate approach loses sight of the individual members in that sense. That is, and I would like to have actually seen that really up as number one.
Okay. And I note and accept those comments, and we will make sure that that's taken account of. But I think for those that have come along and heard the experiences of other councils and other leaders, engagement with the community and being really sharp and clear on what kind of council you want to be within that boundaries of affordability is crucial. And that's something we need to plan with you as elected members post-May.
Anyway, thank you for coming in on the point of Councillor Coles. The next person is Councillor Cranston.
Thank you, Chair. As has recently been said, the difficulty for this is there is an election coming up. The ideas for this council could change. The accommodation hasn't been approved yet, and that's still being worked out, and therefore that could impact on this. And I think what we need to do, and I would like to really see as a recommendation further to what you were saying, Jefferson, is that we really need to separate out what we want to see for the future of this council and have that as separate to how we exit this contract, rather than trying to do it in tandem. We've been criticised for how we got into this contract, so therefore we have to ensure that everything is transparent of how we get out of this contract. So I think that is important. If my memory serves me well, we were advised that this was the only way forward, that we couldn't afford to function as a council unless we came together and formed South West One, and we were therefore going to sell this to the rest of the country, and other councils were going to join up to this. And it didn't happen, and we are where we are. So let's make sure we absolutely are transparent with how we get out of this contract. And I just wanted to ensure that actually when you do the responses to the questions that have come from the public, that all councillors are informed. Because I haven't got a list of the questions, I've only heard them tonight, and I'd like to see those questions and any responses. I think that, when you do work out the exit of how we're getting out of this, can we have the pros and the cons against quality and cost? Let's have this absolutely transparent so that all of us as councillors can absolutely understand exactly what we're voting for. Thank you.
Councillor Burrell.
I'm one of only 2 or maybe 3 councillors when it came forward in 2007 to vote against this contract. Took it 2. I think you and me. Only 2 serving. I think it was, who was the chap on the Blackdowns? Did he not? No. Okay. Because I knew at that time there was a huge amount of naivety this council was walking into in relation to the actual contract. I remember the consultant or consultants this council employed at that time. That, again, a huge expense. And again, they were people who said it's the only hope we've got to save the way the council can work and saving money. I didn't believe that. The concern I have is that if we were to approve more money now, how do we as members not know that the consultant that you approve will not have the same approach in relation to having a preferred provider along the way? I think that's a real concern that we have to take on board here tonight, to making sure that they will be impartial. I'm also concerned that the contractual negotiations that were occurred at the start of the contract, I said at the time, and with respect to people who were involved at the time, that there wasn't actually the depth of knowledge, should I say, in relation to the contract that was being negotiated. I fear we're going to be in the same position now, so I'm pleased to learn that there may be some legal expertise, and I hope that legal expertise will be at a level and seniority that would really be able to drive forward a meaningful response. And I would suggest there be only probably a few lawyers in the country who would be able to do that and provide real value for money, whatever their cost. I'm concerned we're at a point where we're being told that the savings aren't quite what was achieved or looking to be achieved. I'm pleased we're here tonight talking about it tonight, because at full council I asked for this review, didn't I? And I'm glad we're here now. And I think the cashable savings that are being referred to, maybe the portfolio holder can remind me of her answer. It's just shy of £2.5 million. Therefore, if we're at the £3 million point at the end of the contract, we won't even hit the expenditure of getting this contract in place. I'm disappointed that in a conversation I had earlier today with officers, that we don't actually even now know what the total cost of this project has been, both direct and indirect. Not to know that detail, I find that detail on cash control and cost control, I find to be woeful. And particularly that then takes me forward to a concern that do we currently have the capacity level to be able to make these decisions, even if it means the decision of which professional advisors we appoint, and I'm probably concerned we don't. I'm also concerned, let's be open and front and transparent about it, I'm also concerned that the people who are negotiating now at the exit of the contract are people who negotiated at the start. And I'm of the view that we perhaps need a new set of eyes looking at what we're doing, because although no one wishes to be unnecessarily critical of how we got to where we are, I think it's important to be looking a little more asymmetrically and perhaps in a different direction. The question I would like to have answered, I have two or three. The question I would like to have answered is, one of the sales pitches at the start was that IBM would have a headquarters or office in Taunton. I think they've gone off to down the road, Burnham or that part of the county. Why was that not a contractual requirement? In addition, I would like to know, when we came and had the members' briefing last week, we were told there'd be no real discussion in relation to the county hall proposals. Clearly, if we are going to be going down that road, then, frankly, early discussion with our partners at County Hall ought to be paramount before we look at spending more money. I'm also concerned that we see yet again a local government carousel of 47,000 being requested tonight. We've been told already it will be up to 100,000. I'm concerned, where will that end point be? And I think that needs to be known. Otherwise,